At this time, I'd like to invite Larry, Kathy, and Linda to come forward. And they're going to share about their trip to El Salvador.
Jesus left these words for his followers in the Gospel of Matthew 25. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right,
"Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me."
then the righteous will answer him,
Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?
The king will reply,
"Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me."
okay, this is inside Mountains Church. Yeah, there's the picture before that there. That one. This is the outside of Melvin's Church. It was once an old warehouse. When he started renting it, it was very dirty and full of garbage and rubble. So the brown doors there, when the service begins, he can open those. But the little door, man door, behind Linda and I is what they use on a daily basis. The doors are always locked to his church. When you want in, you ring a buzzer. Only him and his wife, Dina, have keys. It's quite a church.
The only way that you would know that was a church at all is the little icon that's at the top, which is their motto, which is "More than conquerors." And this is a scripture from Romans, they are more than conquerors, but only through him who loved them. We know that God loved us before we ever loved him, and that is their underlying current for everything. Because God loves them, they are more than conquerors. They can do more than what they would think that they could do. Inside the church, you'll see there's a pulpit, a lectern, and music is from CDs. A group will lead the singing, and there's an overhead. And in the overhead, you see that they are welcoming missionaries from Canada. That's us, and the other 4 people who are with us. A friend came up from Nicaragua in did the liturgical dance. And so they really know how to express themselves during a worship service. And usually the worship services are fairly animated, except maybe I wasn't and Bruce wasn't quite as animated as the locals were. But there's 4 services a week. Sunday service, Monday is prayer, Wednesday, and then Thursday or Friday is youth group. We were given the most amazing welcome. No one was made to feel like a second-hand citizen. People would come in and they would shake hands with those who were already in the sanctuary. And whether they knew them or they didn't know them, whether they were part of the church or new to the church, they were always everyone was made to feel very welcome. And as we talked about this later, we decided that our churches have a lot to learn from the way they welcome people. I was asked to take a service, and I didn't know this was coming, and so I chose Monday as the day I would give my little address. I gave them the road to Emmaus. The picture downstairs in the Sunday school room, that's what I was thinking of when I was talking about the road to Emmaus. Because Cleopas and his companion, who were on their way to Emmaus, probably were there, and probably were some of the ones that were waving their palms just a few days before. But they were going after they saw that the tomb was empty, and they were so confused. They didn't know what to do, or where to turn, or how to understand, because when they sang Hosanna, which is translated into Lord save us, they thought Jesus was going to come and get rid of the Romans, and they would be free. And that was kind of the crux of the sermon, was that Jesus' plans are much different than our plans. His ways are much different. Cleopas and many were thinking about Israel only, when God was thinking about the whole world and what could be done and that would be done. In the teaching, like what we read from the Bible verse, that was now to continue on with everyone, including us. And even though you weren't missionaries there with us, you were the ones that gave the toothbrush, or the ball equipment, or the crayons, or the donation, or your prayers. And so we were all part of it. You were with us down there as we were with the people, ministering with them and they with us. The other picture there is dodgeball, and the youth service was on Friday night. It was the only night that the doors of the church weren't open once the service started, because there was quite possibly gang members there, and they didn't want any outside interference. But after the service, they had to come for the service. After the service, they had a dodgeball. They cleared away the chairs and had this two dodgeball courts, basically. There was little kids, girls, boys, adults, youth. The youth were the ones that really got into it, but it was really a time of doing things together, even in teams, working in teams, and it was very exciting.
In this one picture, we're preparing the snacks for the congregation after the service. I guess you could say it was a coffee and conversation. We prepared 200 buns, and what you do, you cut them down the middle, you fill them with refried beans and sprinkle cheese on top. This was a great treat for them, and they just loved it. In the other picture, there's the chairs set up for a service. They set up about 180 chairs. There weren't that many people, but there were always over 200 at each service of the week.
I guess that's me. When we first started putting this trip together, Melvin said soccer is really the sport in El Salvador, and not very much baseball, so there's really nothing for the girls to do. The guys are heavily into the soccer, but the girls just watch. So being Melvin, he wanted to include everybody. So his vision when we were making this up was to work with one school that he's working in all the time anyway, and we would do a different class each day, and then the next year we would start with the same class again and do 2 classes. But God didn't think that way. A couple of weeks before we went, it kind of snowballed. So so many teachers and coaches liked the idea that they said, oh, no, you can't just work in one school. We want it for the whole school district. Oh, Melvin said, okay. So when we went out, we made it to 7 different schools. And he's got it set up with his partners there that each of these 7 schools will be the center. So we'll give them equipment, and they will control the equipment, and every day, every week, however they put it together, they will have all that equipment to use. So we were able to take enough equipment there for 6 units of equipment. So they still need a little more for the 7th unit, but we're working on that. So thank you very much for everybody that donated equipment. On the right there, we had 1 set of throw-down bases, but we only had 1 home plate. So there was some drywall left in the church from a previous team that had been there, filled with some rooms that we cut up a piece of drywall and got 6 more home plates, so we were good to go.
And we were glad it didn't rain.
True enough. No? Okay. Tennis balls. Thank you, Liz. And Reg, they are always able to get us tennis balls from the Aurora Racket Club. And boy, are they a hit down there. Everybody loves them, from older kids to younger kids. Picture on the right there, this is at our burial walk, poor community. Actually, we did it in the school this year, and the families came to us. In the bottom of each bag, we put 2 tennis balls, and then filled it with the beans and the rice and the sugar and all that sort of thing. And the ladies were able to go around the room and pick out different clothing and so on that had also been donated. Thank you. By the time they got to us, we were at the end giving out the oil. They had forgotten that the tennis balls were in the bottom of the bag. So they were very adamant that they didn't have tennis balls and they wanted them. So they were a real hit. As it is a new sport, they were showing a little bit of calisthenics and get into some spring training, and I really have a hard time with this picture. I can't figure out what was the best part, whether it was the warm sunshine or the scenery, or just being on a ball bank again with guys like Jeff over there. It was great. And they liked it. And of course, we had our demonstrator there. He was there.
My knees have never been the same.
We're not sure who had more fun.
Now we know.
Yeah, now we know. Some of the time we never knew, because they don't have a lot of baseball diamonds down there, we never knew where we were going to be playing or working with them. We thought when we went to this school that we had the whole soccer field. Well, when we got there, message didn't get through. I guess the email didn't get there. Anyway, there was a soccer tournament. It's the high school kids for the whole city. And we couldn't use the soccer field. So we ended up, we had what, 50 kids that day on this concrete pad. That's where we taught them how to play baseball. But it worked. You improvise. And it worked very, very well. At the end of each session, one of us would give a testimony or a God talk, as we call it. Everybody shared a little message as to how sports worked in your Christian life, or could work in your Christian life. So everybody shared. I think you're going to give yours, didn't you?
I thought you were going to give yours.
Oh, well, whatever. I didn't prepare it. Okay, basically when I was talking to them, I just talked to them that every sport basically has, every game has two teams. And life is very much the same. You have a choice of two teams. You can either play on God's team or you can play on Satan's team. Where do you want to be? What are the advantages of each one? And it's entirely your choice. If you want to be in God's team, He's big enough and that team's big enough that He can take every one of us. And He wants everybody on His team. And you never have to worry about being cut. You can always play in His team. And the benefits at the end of the day, you can play baseball forever if you're on His team. But you can't always do that on Satan's team. So that was mine, basically. And they were all different and all very, very good. Oh, I missed one. Okay. There we are. Part of the calisthenics, if you notice, out in front of the group, there's a fellow in a blue shirt. The fellow beside him in the red shirt. Very good, eh? Thank you. That's the guy. His name is Williams, and he is one of Melvin's projects, if you like. A year or so ago, Williams was on the street. Alcohol problem and so on. So Melvin took him in, and he gave him a room in the church, and they've got a bunch of mattresses there for people that need them. I wouldn't want to sleep on one, and I don't think you would either, but better than concrete floor. Anyway, he gave Williams a mattress and a spot in his church to sleep. And since then, Williams has done a complete turnaround. He's at service 4 times a week, at least. He volunteered with us when we were there, and he even led the calisthenics one day, and he was a pitfall. If you notice back in the left-hand corner, about halfway up, to the left bit, a little bit more, there, right there. Not everybody could stay with Williams, given these calisthenics. I sure couldn't, but this person could. I think she'll recognize herself. But that just shows you Melvin's heart. Anybody that he sees that needs something, he's there to help. And he turns them right around, and you'll hear more of that as we go through this. There. Now it's on to something that we all like.
Okay, this is a picture of the market. We went to the market often in the morning. It's a very, very busy market. It's dirty, it's noisy, but that's where we got our rice and beans. It's within walking distance of Melvin's church, so that was great. I won't say the walking conditions were great, but we got there. It's actually at that very stall, we bought our 200 pounds of beans and 200 pounds of rice. We also bought corn flour, sugar, and cooking oil. And these, they were all donated to her families in the church, and so on. The girl in the front is Melvin's daughter, Catherine, and at the back is his wife, Dina. We went to the market with them. You would never, ever go to the market alone, and you could stay very close to them when we were there. Just other market vendors selling oranges, grapefruit, lemon, lime, and limes. There were chickens hung up in the sun. There's lots of meat hanging in the direct sun. The lady in the blue dress, she was just a cutie. She sold little bags of peanuts, and when you bought a bag, she squeezed lime juice and hot sauce and put chili peppers in the bag, and it was hot. She sold each bag was a quarter, and every time we were at the market, she was there, so I think she must have been there 7 days of the week. Beside her, to her right, is a gray pail, and you can see in the pail bags, and that's cooking oil. Yeah, right. So the locals would buy the cooking oil in a plastic bag because it's much cheaper, much cheaper to buy in a bag than a bottle. And there we are back at Melvin's church, assembling all the bags, ready to give out. The Alcohol Rehab Center. Pastor Melvin has been waiting to reach out to this group. We gave him the opportunity. Now they are members of the church, attending regularly and helping to clean it each week. This is a picture of the outside of the rehab center. The nicest thing of the whole rehab center was the logo. This man in the red shirt, he was the group leader, and he was standing in an area they would call the kitchen. Underneath the table, you can't see it, but there were crates of squash. At the end of the market day, they go to the market and they get whatever the vendors are throwing out, and that's their meal. Squash was disgusting. I can't imagine anybody eating it. So there are bags of food that we gave to them so we don't have to, or they don't have to eat this food that they gather up from the market. Sleeping area, very crowded, very small, very hot, and no ventilation at all. The workbench. To provide mental therapy and generate some meager resources, they tried to make a little picture frame or a little box. The wood they would just have collected off the street, and they only had one rusty saw to work with, but they tried. Here's the barbecue. On top of the barbecue are some potatoes. I don't think they would ever cook, and I don't think you would eat them if they didn't cook. But that's the kind of living conditions that they are in. In the background, there's Linda and Pastor Melvin having a conversation. Ladies with histories and wanting to rewrite the script. Pastor Melvin has a Saturday morning program at his church in conjunction with the justice system. Every Saturday morning, men and women would gather at the church as part of their parole. Sophie, Melvin's daughter, would teach them, improve their language, improve their schooling, and help to get better grades, so when they go out into the community, they would be a benefit. If they did not attend, if their grades did not improve, they were sent back to jail. The lady in the gray shirt, she told us she had been in prison for 5 years. She had a baby in prison that she has in the little stroller there, and she was in prison for murder. All these ladies had committed very serious crimes. They told us that they all belonged to gangs, and we asked them, what did you want more than anything else? And they said, we want to get out of the gangs, but it's almost impossible for them to leave. Some of them, again, the lady in the gray top had been in a gang since she was 11 years old. Gangs are another whole story that we can talk about, but the gang members approach very young people and offer them food, security, great life if they will just join the gang. But once they're there, they can't get out, and they are forced to do not very nice things. So these ladies are trying, but it is quite a struggle. There was also one man there that morning, but he didn't want his food taken.
Schools were very fortunate in that all the students were given uniforms to wear. So the girls had skirts or jogging pants, the boys had slacks or jogging pants, and they all were given t-shirts to wear. Their books were also supplied. So the government was really into youth. One of the schools we went to, their ask was not for uniforms or money for uniforms or books or supplies. It was for another classroom because they had grown enough that they wanted to put a grade 7 classroom onto their school so that the kids would be in their local area and yet continue on at least to grade 7. The government's focus was on youth and children, and we visited a hospital, a brand new wing, a children's wing of the hospital, and it was very modern. It was laid out in the way our newer hospitals are laid out, and there was a lot of old cribs and new cribs, and ICU and different just for pediatrics. And so that was very, very promising. There was a lot of children there who had respiratory problems, and they said, oh, well, it was just pneumonia or asthma or something, but there was often the pollution in the air too, which I'm sure did not help. The government, we're hoping that the government interest in youth and children continues on because recently on the TV they said the U.S. government was cutting their funding to Central American countries, and so that may not be as good from now on.
One day Dina, who is cutting the cabbage there, Melvin's wife, she was going to make us a traditional meal or a dish, and it was pupusas. Now pupusas, it's a long, lengthy process to make them. She had started at 5:30 in the morning, and they were ready about 5 o'clock at night. But one of the steps is going to the market, to a little stall, and we carried beans and vegetables and pork, and at the market they put it through a grinder for you, and it comes out, and this is what you put in one of the ingredients in your pupusas. So here Linda is supervising the gentleman putting the meat in her hand, and she slices it like this, and it's paper thin. You can't imagine how she can do it. It's pretty amazing. She's been doing it for a long time. In the kitchen, behind her, there's a table. That's the only cupboard in the kitchen. When you do your dishes, or she does the dishes, you do them in the sink, and they just go on the drain board. There's no cupboard for dishes at all. In fact, there's no food processors, there's no electric knife, there's no mixers, as I mentioned, no cupboard. In fact, there's no hot water, and there's no refrigerator, but the meals were great. In this stall, they have a sign that says you must wash your hands before you leave. Well, there again, there was no hot water, there was no soap, and as you can tell, it probably wasn't the cleanest place either, but that's their way of life.
Up the road from where we stayed, there was a Mayan ruin, and I was thinking of being while we were here, back in the 1500s, and it was quite an interesting experience. We had a couple hours one morning, so we stopped in this mound. You can't see it very well in the picture, but it's built on very different levels, and here, the mound, and so on. What we learned while we were there was that every one of those mounds but contains a temple. Every king had his own temple built right in the same compound. So, what was it, 22 or 24 temples in this site? I just forget now, but quite a few of them. Learned a lot of history there. There's an area at the back, I should tell the story. There's an area at the back where it's plain grass, rectangular area, and that's where they played a game called, they called it football, but apparently it was more like rugby. Well, they take their sports very seriously down there, especially the Mayans, and the rumor has it, from what we learned there, that the victor was very, very fortunate. Not only because they won, had bragging rights, but the losing team, they got their heads chopped off. So there are burial sites on this property too. Have a lot of people. So we're happy that we weren't playing football that day. And on the right, this is one of the more upscale schools. It shows the boys in their uniforms anyway. Some of them are track pants, and some of them are slacks. Always a white shirt, playing on a concrete pad, and that's one game of soccer with all those kids in the one small area, but they're happy. And I never can get over the fact that we have everything here, virtually everything. If we want something, we go and get it. Those kids have nothing, but they're happy, and we're always complaining. That hopefully is the future. As Linda said, the government right now is pouring a lot of money into youth for recreation, for schools and so on, and we certainly hope that continues.
I think the other thing that all of this brought to me was the fact that if Melvin, what his whole thing was community, whether it was the kids in the schools, working with them to do baseball, whether it was the gang members, even where he lived, he was president of the association for his district, and whether it was the people on the street, the fellow who had a little money and ended up drunk and laying on the sidewalk in front of the church, he said, one day that man is going to be part of this church. And before we left, that man was able to bring more and more people into the church. Didn't matter whether they were alcoholics or gang members or whatever. They were all welcome in the church. And he worked with them in order for them to get to know who God was, who Jesus was, and who the Holy Spirit is. So that was just kind of boggling my mind. Of the 5 services that we attended, he preached once. And there was another fellow, Bruce, and I took one each, and then 2 other people, Kevin and Alex and his congregation, they took the service too. So it was all about community, whether in the church or outside the church, and that's what his whole thing was.
So once again, thank you for everything that you helped us take down there, whether it was financial or equipment or tennis balls or toothbrushes, whatever it was all very, very warmly received. So thank you for giving us the opportunity.
I want to thank you for sharing what God's been doing in your lives and in the lives of Pastor Melvin's congregation, and also the city that you went to visit. People, just giving us a glimpse of the people that you encountered and just what God is doing there. Thank you very much. Let us take a moment and go pray. Lord Jesus, you call each of us into service. You call each of us to serve you, but also to serve the people around us, to share in your love, to share in your grace, to share in the hope that you have given us, and to share that with friends, with family, but also with complete strangers, or soon-to-be friends. Lord, we can be amazed at how big you really are, and all that you are doing. Sometimes we don't even realize a fraction of what the potential is when you invite us into ministry, when you invite us into serving, when you invite us into believing and seeing what you can do with one life, let alone a billions of lives. Lord, help us. Help us to trust you, to trust your faithfulness. Help us to trust you when you call us, when you say, this is where you are to go. This is what you are to do. Help us to trust that you won't leave us hanging high and dry, that you will be walking with us and going before us and prepare your way. That we don't go in vain, but we go to serve you, to share in the amazing work that you have started.